El sueño americano es que los niños tengan buen futuro, que estudien, sean alguien en la vida. Los otros venimos para acá a luchar para acá y echarle pierna, ¿sí? Por los niños.
Governor, thank you for spending some time with us.
Sure.
You have extended your executive order declaring a disaster emergency regarding the migrants. Is that going to continue indefinitely, or will you at some point go to the legislature and try to set up some conditions that are going to last as long as this situation lasts?
Well, what this does is it allows me to expend resources at this time because the legislature has not been there since June. I have had to pay for National Guard. We have over 2,000 National Guard members who are literally going in and helping set up shelters, building cribs, helping get groceries. I mean, they're really hands-on, and they're doing an extraordinary job. So to pay for that, to pay for the legal service, there's a lot of services that we're providing. Mm-hmm. And for me to be able to do that when they're not in session, it's outside the budget, this is a humanitarian crisis. And I had to have the powers to control the purse right now so I can make sure we spend this emergency funding. So we can talk about it with the legislature, but clearly this is going to have to be addressed in the next session as well because the numbers have not gone down. People are still coming here. We're getting about 2,500 to 3,000 a week. And we continue to build shelters and work toward getting people jobs. So this is not going to be gone anytime soon. We know the federal government needs to give us more money. That's a big issue for us, but I don't see that happening in the short term.
Well, even 7 or 8 months in advance of his budget deadline, the mayor of New York City has ordered deep budget cuts based on what he expects is going to happen with taking care of the migrant situation, projecting $12 billion over the next 3 years. What do your budget people tell you, even in advance of the formal process that kicks off in January, about how much this is likely to cost the state?
Well, we're already in for almost $2 billion. By the end of our fiscal year, it'll be $2 billion, and we had budgeted $1 billion. So we're already double what we expected right there. So when I go back and I'm right now preparing my budget, I have to look at where we're going to spend the finite dollars that we have. I don't think that we can continue paying for hotels for people in Midtown Manhattan, which are very expensive, especially through the holidays, indefinitely, and have our doors open to the entire world. I mean, there's 8 billion people. So the idea that we can continue providing that level of care is not sustainable. But that being said, people cannot be left on the streets. So that's why we have invested significant dollars in Creedmoor, building 1,000 units there. Floyd Bennett Field, there's 2,000 spaces there, 1,000 available today. So to make sure that as the weather gets colder, there's nobody who has to stay on the streets. We won't let that happen.
With the emergency declaration in place, why not require all counties to pitch in and help, as opposed to having what in effect is New York City, plus 57 other policies, all kind of going in different directions?
These individuals came to New York City because they want to be in New York City. New York City, and we know why it's so spectacular, but there are jobs. They're not necessarily legal jobs, but a lot of the individuals who've left the shelters and not returned have found employment in the underground economy. That's not very available in upstate New York. There's a different culture. Employers are not employing people without legal papers. Secondly, transportation. We have all the transportation networks to get people to jobs. Migrants don't have driver's licenses and they don't have a car. That's how you survive in upstate New York. So there's realities, and even the ones who've been sent up there wanted to come back as soon as they could because there's now more people from their country, Venezuelans and Ecuadorians. And so they wanted one thing, they want a job. I've been focused on getting them jobs, and I have jobs waiting for them upstate. I have 1,000 employers, half of which are in upstate New York who said, we'll take them tomorrow. Just get that work authorization. I have 2,500 people every single day working on this crisis to get them jobs, get them out of the shelters, and let them have the life that they came here for, like all of our ancestors did.
You've been speaking with White House officials frequently. At one point, I believe you told me it was every day. You recently made a trip to Washington, D.C. Has the White House held up their end of the bargain, what they've promised you, or at least suggested that they might be able to do for New York?
Yes. I mean, at first, they didn't think they could deliver the thousands of opportunities for Venezuelans. That was our first plea. You need to let these people work. This was the country the most were coming from. They're leaving severe violence and a dictatorship, and the economy has imploded. So can you let the Venezuelans work? They worked it out with us, and we got them to yes. Now they have sent people to help staff it. There used to be one facility to process people 70 a day. We ramped it up. There's now we'll be approaching 500 applications for work a day. So we're starting to get ahead of this now. I don't see it's going to be gone anytime soon, but we're in a far better place, and the federal government did step up and help us there. Now they're also asking on our behalf for $14 billion from the legislature, from Congress, part of which will go to communities like New York. Part of it is to bulk up the border. There should be a decompression strategy at the border where people can be processed, vetted, and sent to other places around the country instead of just open doors and they come to New York because they've all heard of New York. They've heard of how great it is here. So.
Right. There's been some controversy and pushback around one of the deals that you made with the federal government, which is Floyd Bennett Field, and using it as a center. As you mentioned, about half of the beds that are available are not being used, and we've certainly seen footage of people getting off the bus, looking at the center, getting back on the bus and saying, it's too remote, this isn't going to work for us. Have you seen the center? It really is pretty far out there.
My job is to build capacity. I had the federal government. It's a federal problem. So give me federal space. We worked hard to get this. So it's outside of neighborhoods, indeed, but it's not disruptive to neighborhoods. But there's bus lines. I'm now paying for additional bus lines to take people from there to subway stations, to trains, and to jobs. Is it ideal? No. But it's a temporary emergency shelter that has capacity for the families that are arriving, because, again, it's unsustainable to put people for a year and a half now, 2 years, in midtown hotels. Can't afford it. We don't want any more cuts in the city. We don't want cuts in state services. So we have to manage this. So the facility has heating and air conditioning and restroom facilities, and we don't allow people with family, with children, to be on the streets of New York. This is available with extra capacity right now for anyone who finds themselves in that dire situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it sounds like to move ahead to a possible endgame about where all of this ends up is the emergency capacity, temporary beds, the processing capacity so that people can get their work authorizations and their asylum claims in motion. And then one last piece of the puzzle might be resettlement, including in places upstate where there are jobs available.
We have a resettlement policy that when people can legally work, the state will pay for their housing for 1 year. So we are making it even more enticing. But the problem is, as I've said loud and clear, we have a shortage of housing, not just in the city. We have a shortage of housing that's affordable all over the state of New York. So I can't even say there'd be a landlord who'd be able to accept someone who can work legally because we are at capacity everywhere. So that's part of the challenge as well. We don't want people to spend any more time in a shelter than necessary, but we also then have to find the apartments once they get those first paychecks. But the state of New York is committed to covering the costs for them to live once they have that work authorization upstate or wherever for a solid year. As I said, I have 20,000 jobs waiting for them upstate, 20,000 downstate. So there is an end game. The problem for us right now, we still have 2,500 to 3,500 people coming every week, every single week. That is not abating. That's why we need a border strategy that's going to work.
Mira, para nosotros el sueño americano de todo inmigrante es tener una vida, una estabilidad económica, financiera, y tanto financiera como emocional, ¿no? Poder ayudar a nuestras familias, comprarse de sus cositas, ¿no? Como todo mundo, tener una moto, un carro, una vida crediticia. Ese es el sueño americano.
We are migrants. I'm a migrant, and I know what it's like to be here. I can't imagine coming here with nothing and no one to guide me.
I've went in the shelter system, I've been in group homes, I've been in the streets.
I felt an obligation for us to respond. It was important to show them that, yes, you're welcome, and I wish the best for you.
When I look at these people with kids, young as my grandkids, and you've walked through several countries to get to where I was born, it says something to you.
Try to be a welcoming force, to live up to what America is all about, what New York City, having the Statue of Liberty in our harbor is all about.
I know that these kids have gone through a lot. I just want to help them get a sense of community.
It's fulfilling to know that we're doing something that's worthwhile, that is helping people. And you feel good when you know you can give back.
These kids remind me of myself when I was younger. They really just deserve the opportunity to succeed.
What keeps me going is seeing the people that keep showing up with hope, regardless of the adversity that they've gone through, regardless of the journey that they've been through, just having that glimmer of hope.
It's great seeing how much hope they have in a future of life in New York City.
Human beings have always found a way to communicate, especially where there's love. And there's certainly a lot of love among these volunteers and these asylum seekers.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.